Hello, welcome to Language and Power Podcast, Series 4, Episode 1. This is a preview episode for COP28, which, as we record, is going to start tomorrow in the United Arab Emirates. And we're looking forward to it. Tom, we're back.
Hi there, good to be back, and everyone can see us in glorious Technicolor now as well.
Well, that's right, because we have got some small changes for this season. First of all is that we are, fingers crossed, as long as we can work out the technology, we're going to put this on YouTube as well, so you'll be able to see us.
Lucky you. You'll not be able to see my co-presenter, Neddy, who will be keeping me company in my office.
Excellent. And you'll also, people who do go onto YouTube will be able to check just how tired we are, how much we don't look like our profile pictures, which were taken 20 years ago in my case, and so on and so forth. So if you're interested, if you are interested in just kind of watching the screen grab of what we do, but on the YouTube, I think I'm also going to try and put on any text that we talk about. I'm going to try and put a screenshot on there so you might be able to follow along a little bit better. But we won't make too much of it, so that we can continue with the audio podcast as well. So that's one change. So I'm looking forward to that. Second change is that we've also got a Patreon page, which I'll put a link to in the description. I'll put a link to the YouTube in the description as well. But for Patreon, we would like to be more interactive with the podcast so that we can have you, the audience, contributing your thoughts, your questions, your suggestions to what we talk about in the series. And so we've set up a Patreon page, link in the description, where you will be able to join the discussion there. And we'll also put on a couple of other things on there as well. Now, there is a small charge for that because we are also paying money for the website and the podcast software and so on. So if you would be able to contribute to that, it's a small charge. And if you just join us for a month, that would be fantastic. But you'll be able to join the conversation there, take part in polls on the content of the episodes. We're going to put up transcripts of the episodes if that's of interest to anybody. And we're also going to put in a couple of shorter posts, maybe a few short videos on there as well to get involved. So what we'd really like to have is a bit more interaction, Tom.
Yeah, that's great. Great new innovation. But just to emphasize, if you want to carry on listening in the traditional way, then it will, of course, be totally free of charge.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's good. And then as a special bonus, we've got a new outro edit of our theme tune as well. So you can have a listen to that and see what you think of that. So
we might have a poll on the guitar playing skills at the end of this session.
Yeah, that could be an idea. Don't be too brutal. So today we just want to give a preview of what we're going to be talking about in this series. So as we said, COP starts tomorrow for us as we record this on the 30th of November 2023. So what have we got in store? First of all, we're going to be looking at the opening speeches, which come on the they'll be taking place tomorrow, but we're going to talk about them, have a little bit of time to reflect on them, see what the leaders are saying about COP. Now, this is something that we looked at back in Series 1. We did an episode on the leaders' events. In Episode 1, we looked at Boris Johnson and in his kind of speech pre-COP at G20, and we also looked at the leaders' event in which we looked at things including Boris Johnson's speech. We looked at Gaston Brown's speech from Antigua and Barbuda, and we saw very different personas contrasting with those. So let's see what we have this time.
Those of you without long memories, Boris Johnson was the Prime Minister before the one we have now, before the one we have now, in a long time ago, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be interesting, I think, to see if what the leaders say now how they marry with what we've seen previous leaders say. So what we saw, I think, in Boris Johnson's speech, which was when it was held in Glasgow, so it was held in the UK, very much a narrative in which the UK was seen as holding a leaderly and perhaps even heroic role in climate negotiations. That was what the narrative was about. So we'll see if that carries on here in the United Arab Emirates.
We also saw a very different speech from Mia Mottley, who's the Premier of Barbados, who it's a very interesting contrast between the speeches then. If you remember back in that COP, it was Mia Mottley and Boris Johnson. So the different ways that different world leaders can try and set the agenda and set some of these prime discussion topics and the way they do it really interesting every year.
Excellent. Yep. So we'll do that. That'll be the next one that we record. And as you know, the COP after this big leaders event then moves into thematic days. So what we're going to be looking at in perhaps in the third episode, or what we're planning to look at, is the idea of just transitions. So that's something that we can. Well, I'm looking forward to on there. Tom, you've got something. This is something you're particularly interested in.
Yeah, very interesting area. The whole notion of just transitions, which is one of these buzzwords that comes and goes and finds favor and disfavor with people at different times. The idea is that as we move towards, well, either a deindustrialized society in previous decades or a greener economy in the coming decades, that people, sectors of society will not be left behind in this transition. So that, those areas that have got very intensive with dirty industries, alternative employment will be found and provided so that people aren't left on the dole and the scrap heap as they were in the wake of pit closures back in 1984. So it also, applies to many, many areas. In my particular areas with fishing and, ocean resources, how it might be possible to change to alternative economies that are in an equitable way. So really, really interesting area, and one that's, politically as well as economically and environmentally very, very important and sensitive. So very interesting topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had an episode on just transitions in season 3, the third episode with Jamie Cook, if you remember, of the Royal Society of Edinburgh.
We did indeed.
That was a good episode, wasn't it? So again, if you're interested in that, the links are all on the website, so you can have a listen to that, see the kinds of issues that we were talking about then, and we can continue that conversation this time. See how that transpires here. So that'll be a good one. We're then going to be talking about food, agriculture, and water. So that's another thematic day. They're going to be talking about that on the 10th of December. So we'll be recording an episode shortly after that. And this is something that we've looked at before. You're also interested in, as you just said, in the discourse around fishing communities. So that's something that you've had a look at, Tom.
Yeah, no, we're very interested to see what themes are picked up on and emphasised there, and how deeply they'll go into these issues. But until then, I suppose we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
With bated breath to see what they're going to say.
Absolutely, yeah. We move on then. I mean, we're not going to, as we did in the very first series, we tried to look at this every day. We're not going to do that this time. We're just picking and choosing some of the themes. We're going to move on then to the closing agreement. So the COP always ends up with a closing agreement. The as it has been recently, the aim of this COP, what people are saying about this, is to keep the 1.5 alive. So we'll see what kinds of agreements the negotiations end up at in the end here. And again, we've looked at previous closing agreements in other series, so we can do a bit of a comparison and see what happens with the way that they negotiate this. And again, that's the big closing thing. That's what will make the headlines, I guess, around the world at the end of the COP.
Going on to the bonus editions we've got on in January, where we'll reflect, as it were, on some of the things we've seen, but we'll do this through specific lenses, to adopt a once trendy academic word. So in January, we'll be looking at COP through the lens of media, what media have made of it all, and reflecting on coverage during COP and after COP, and hopefully we'll be getting some guests, as in previous series, media specialists to talk about that, as well as having Michael's and my own ill-informed opinions on this. We'll get an expert in.
Absolutely.
And then for the second thematic one in January, what a pet area of mine, an area that's sometimes called in linguistics positive discourse analysis, but this is the idea that as well as critiquing and criticizing certain ways of speaking, certain speeches, and finding fault with them and showing how they reflect faults in society, it asks the question how we would design alternative ways of speaking, alternative texts that might improve the future. And it's a very difficult topic, and it comes to mind today particularly by a link. There's a bit of a crisis going on before COP starts. There's a scandal brewing about the possibility that the forum is going to use for side deals in oil negotiations, and that sort of takes away a lot of potentially takes away a lot of credibility straight away, which is, so we'll talk about how discourses can be made to look bad or made to look good. But in relation to that, two other emails I got today, one of which is from a fundraising organization, but has Chai Shree, if you remember from a previous episode again.
Well, I can tell you which episode if people are interested. Yeah. She was. We spoke about her in episode 4 of the first series. The episode was called "The Attack of the Activists." So if you're interested, we'll put a link to that in the notes.
And a wonderful, interesting speech she gave then. And we talked at the time about who would be listening to the way she was presenting things and who would be moved by what she said and who would dismiss it as irrelevant, as ephemeral. So these are the topics we're going to return to, because the fundraising group are sort of a bit opportunist on the back of this pending oil deal crisis, sent some promotional material that was theoretically written by Chai Shree. It carried her name and was in inverted commas and signed by her, but clearly written by the charity, though it did use some of the same language that she used in her speech to COP previously. But what was interesting is that this was very much talking about the harm and the dangers to her own community, as was her original talk, and very much emphasizing a negative approach. And so one of the questions that we want to ask is that always the best way to approach things? Because also this morning I got an article from The Guardian, and we will share the link for that as well, which says that there are people who say that the way we talk about climate change at the moment, it's frightening people into inactivity and actually paralyzing people. There's so much bad news, people don't know what to do, and maybe we should try an alternative approach. So all these things sort of came together over the last few days, and we'll reflect on those issues in the last episode, or the second episode in January.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to that. I think it is a perennial issue about the climate communication, isn't it? And how do you best talk about this whole thing? And so I'm really looking forward to that. So I think this will be something that we kind of touch on throughout the series. But yeah, the plan is to come back to this in a really kind of focused way in perhaps, as you say, Tom, the final episode. But that also gives us an opportunity for people, anybody who does want to get involved with talking about these issues and contributing thoughts, ideas through the Patreon site. We're very, very open, and we really would like to hear from people about suggestions and ideas about how we move from spotting what's wrong with some of the discourse that we see to ways of doing things in a way that will make a difference, and speaking about things in a way that would make a difference. So that would be ideal, wouldn't it?
Yep, fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's what's lined up. And quick apology that this is new technology we're working with, and if Michael and I's repartee and banter isn't quite as zippy as it normally is, this is because we're struggling with time delays and distorted sound coming through, and trying to keep up this witty Morecambe and Wise style banter. So hopefully it will come out okay. If not, blame the technology, not us.
We've got terrible internet connections and all sorts of other technological problems, but hopefully that will be all resolved for next time. Well, I think, Tom, that's it for now. A quick preview episode, a little flavour of things to come, and okay. Well, we'll see you next time. And or you may see us if you look on YouTube, but we'll be looking forward to hearing from one or two of you as we go through the series.
And now for that previously announced outro. with the guitar playing skills of
Yeah.
someone anonymous. We might reveal this at a later date.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Bye.
See you now. Bye.